One of the reactions I get from some Christians when I talk about the 7 mountains or the 7 spheres of influence is, well, Jason, societal transformation is all well and good, but shouldn't our focus be on preaching the gospel and getting people into heaven? Isn't that priority 1? What if we make people's life better, but they still go to hell? Now, the problem with this way of thinking is that it's a false dilemma. It's like a government saying to its citizens, do you want national security or civil liberties? Well, why do I have to choose between national security and civil liberties? I'd like both of those, thank you very much. A false dilemma is a logical fallacy in which something is presented as an either-or situation when there are really other options. I've seen a tendency for human beings to fall into this by making things binary, by making them black and white. We don't have to choose between preaching the gospel and impacting culture. Jesus commands us to do both, and the one should enhance the other. So this is how it's often framed. Jason, if we had to choose, wouldn't it be more important to focus on things like preaching the word, prayer, fellowship, and evangelism? To which I would respond, absolutely. If we had to choose, these things would be the priority. In the same way that if you were a surgeon and you said to me, Jason, you have to choose between your heart and your legs, I guess I'd have to choose to have my legs removed. But what a horrible choice. It's a choice between bad and worse, not between what's bad and what's best. If you remove my heart, I'm dead. And if you remove my legs, I'm a cripple. I don't want to be dead or a cripple. This is how some churches today tend to approach this issue. Spirituality has been very narrowly defined to include things like preaching the word, prayer, fellowship, and evangelism. These things are categorized as the things of God. In this false perspective, the things of God are essentially only the things that happen within the context of church. Things such as business, government, media, education, and the arts are considered to be worldly activities. If a leader is engaged in these activities, he or she may be encouraged to get really serious about their faith and go into full-time ministry. Now, sometimes Christian leaders who are serving in one of these other spheres are made to feel like their walk with Christ is less spiritual or second class. Again, because spirituality is being narrowly defined. Now, another and only slightly better but still false perspective is what I call the overlap model. With this broken perspective, we have the same narrowly defined spirituality, but in this model there is some overlap. The church believes that family and Christian education and perhaps the arts and media, on a limited basis, can be used for godly purposes. Let me give you an example from arts and media. People with this perspective will support a Christian movie if the movie has a clear gospel presentation, essentially an altar call. Now, I support such movies, and I've personally been involved in movie projects like this, so I'm not criticizing this kind of movie. However, if this is the only type of media that we can put under the category of the things of God, then we're limiting our influence by neglecting media that influences culture in godly ways, but may not be explicitly churchy. Now, while this perspective is less destructive than the first, it still doesn't match the biblical model. The domains of media, government, business, and education still seem to be outside of and only slightly overlapping the things of God. If we are not intentionally working towards transforming the 7 spheres, it's like we're crippled. As we've seen, there are significant times in history when the church has been both spiritually vibrant and has reformed culture, and that's what we want. We want an integrated model. This is the kingdom model. Things like the power of the gospel, prayer, worship, giving, fellowship, and evangelism are central to the life of the Christian community. That's the heartbeat. But the other spheres of life are also considered to be sacred to the believer. We've drawn this circle of the things of God to include each sphere. In this model, the members of the church are being discipled, affirmed, equipped, and empowered in the counsel of God for each of these domains. wherever God has placed them. We see this in Paul's instruction to the Colossian believers when he said, "Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord, not for human masters, since you know that you will receive an inheritance from the Lord as a reward. It is the Lord Christ you are serving," in Colossians chapter 3, verses 23 through 24. Now, if we understand this, it positions us as world changers to make an impact to influence society more powerfully. And that's exactly what we want to do. We want to influence society. And that brings us to another criticism that some people have. Some people criticize the Seven Mountains vision by claiming that we're trying to work toward a Christian takeover of society. Now, this is a straw man argument. What do I mean by that? A straw man argument is a kind of fallacy in which you pretend to refute an opponent's argument when what you're really refuting is an argument that your opponent never really made. Now, some people say that Seven Mountains is about forcing Christian dominion over society, kind of a militant takeover. This is not remotely true. Anyways, for those that speak out against the Seven Mountains, what are you afraid of? Are you afraid that Christians will pray for change, will vote, or even run for office? Are you afraid that they'll get involved in civic organizations or even start them? Are you afraid that we'll excel in business, fund righteous causes, speak out against evil, create beautiful art that honors God, be a prophetic voice in media? If you really think about it, the resistance just isn't merited. It just doesn't make sense. Now, we do believe that we are to have dominion over nature, over creation. We believe that we have dominion over the devil, but we don't believe we're to take dominion over our fellow man. We're called to serve our fellow man. We're simply saying that if believers follow Jesus, intentionally serve, live righteously, and speak truth in every place that God has positioned us, it will transform society. It will influence culture. It will bless nations. Again, our prayer is this: Thy kingdom come, Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven.